America is strewn with eerie and mysterious ghost towns, crumbling relics of a bygone era, which dot the continental landscape of the United States from Maine to California. Their ruins speak to us about a different time, when life was simpler and yet oftentimes also shorter and more brutal. Today, we'll be exploring the remains of an abandoned ghost town in New Mexico, known as Dawson. What we found here, deep in the isolated mountains of the New Mexico desert, was astonishing. Hundreds of crumbling ruins and stone building foundations strewn about all over the open landscape. An abandoned railway buried under the crushing weight of an alpine avalanche. A sinister cemetery that's all but abandoned. What do all of these things have in common? They're all located right there at the site of the now forgotten ghost town of Dawson. Once the center of multiple lucrative mining operations, Dawson was founded in 1901 when rancher John Barclay Dawson sold his coal-rich land in northern New Mexico to the Dawson Fuel Company. The mines were productive, and by 1905, the town boasted a population of nearly 2,000, later reaching around 9,000. In 1906, the mines were purchased by the Phelps Dodge Corporation. The corporation needed to attract workers to the remote location, so they built homes for the miners, along with numerous other facilities including a hospital, department store, swimming pool, movie theater, and a golf course. With these amenities, Phelps Dodge was able to maintain a stable employment rate despite the inherent dangers of mining and the isolation of northern New Mexico. Several of these mines were connected to the coal processing and loading facilities at Dawson by means of an electric-powered narrow-gauge railroad. Cars would be loaded inside the mines, taken outside, and then transported in trains to the facilities in town. Interestingly enough, we found an abandoned railway, partially buried under the rocks and dirt from a previous avalanche in the mountains just exactly at the site of the old ghost town of Dawson, not far from the ruins of the buildings themselves. Could these rails be the very ones that were used to transport material from the mines to the town? On October 22nd of 1913, Dawson suffered its first major disaster when mine number 2 was shaken by an explosion that was felt 2 miles away, even in the town itself. Despite efforts to rescue the trapped and injured miners, only 23 out of 286 survived. It was later determined that the explosion was caused by a dynamite charge set off while the mine was in general operation, igniting coal dust in the mine. This was in violation of safety mining laws. Then, on February 8th of 1923, mine number 1 also suffered a deadly explosion. A mine car derailed, knocking down timbers and the electric trolley cable, causing sparks and igniting coal dust in the mine. 123 men were killed in this explosion, many of them the offspring of the men who had died in the earlier accident of 1913. However, Dawson didn't become a ghost town until 1950, when the Phelps Dodge Corporation shut down the mines. Up until that point, the mines had already been gradually closing, one by one, due to declining demand. The closures were also due in large part to the completion of the 25-year contract with the Southern Pacific Railroad. The entire town was sold or razed, with some of the miners' houses moved to other locations. Thus came about the end of a once sprawling town that had at its peak housed a population of up to 9,000 residents. Today, the ruins of Dawson continue to fade back into oblivion, with only a relatively few of its buildings remaining as the land is gradually reclaimed by the unrelenting desert. The tall smokestacks of the coking ovens were eventually demolished in the early 2000s because they represented a liability to the current owner of the property. One of the only other significant landmarks remaining in Dawson is the cemetery, which is on the National Register of Historic Places. The cemetery is filled with iron crosses painted white, marking the graves of many miners who died in the mines. Other markers show the burial locations of other former residents of Dawson. The story of Dawson is an example of the spectacular rise and fall of some of America's ghost towns, and a reminder that there may well still be many historical treasures, ruins, and stories waiting to be discovered out in the vast landscapes of America, sometimes even where you would least have expected it. Thank you so much for joining me on this adventure. Please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to XPLORE if you're enjoying my content, as well as clicking on the notification bell to be notified of any future videos that I produce. I'll see you on the next one.